Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. This is Tom Bendien from Madison Cloud IT Solutions. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area, and I'd like to share some best practice processes and considerations in planning your cloud programs today. My professional experience in cloud reaches back about 6 or so years. I've been with HP and IBM as a cloud practice specialist, and also with some startup companies as well to sort of learn how things go in cloud, how things have changed compared to traditional IT, and things like that. So very much would like the session today to be interactive. We will have some polls here where opportunities for you guys to ask questions. Again, this is not really a product pitch. It's not, sort of telling people what to do or anything like that. It's supposed to be an interactive session where you're getting a chance to ask some questions, interact, maybe, mention things you've learned, or just sort of share things with us here too, because there's no experts here that know everything. This is all a community type of thing. So in any case, I'd like to go to the first slide here. These are some of the things that I've learned in my cloud journeys and cloud projects over time over the last few years. There's many ways to leverage, consumption-based IT services, cloud these days. It's almost just too much. There are so many different service providers. There are so many different solutions each service provider offers, and then there is such a high rate or pace of new solutions coming to market. So this presents a lot of opportunities and challenges. In the case of the U.S. federal government, we are a specialist, what's called a hub zone small business. So we have a large practice around providing IT solutions to the federal government, state and local as well. And we also support commercial customers. One thing for anyone that's on this call now that has anything to do with cloud for federal government is that there's a security framework called FedRAMP, which is found at fedramp.gov here, which is intended to accelerate cloud adoption by developing these certain security baselines for a range of cloud offerings. So again, it's not a rubber stamp. However, it's essentially established some baselines that will help security professionals with government agencies get kind of a head start and not have to, have providers developing a security plan from scratch. It basically sets some baselines that the security people on the government can use. So the other thing is, we talked earlier about, cloud service offering continuing to expand and evolve very rapidly. This is something I think most people are seeing. It provides opportunities and challenges, and it's just something we want to be aware of. So the thing is, though, in this dynamic environment, the basic engineering 101 and security fundamentals still apply. So cloud does not automatically kind of give you, a system or a platform that runs by itself. It doesn't automatically, contain all security controls you may need. One second. And it's a totally different way of solutioning, right? So it's not in the traditional way where people would spend six months or so, whatever it is, in engineering, going through very detailed design processes, and then purchasing a solution and rolling it out. Cloud is a platform that allows you to really sort of try things quickly in a few hours, in a day or two, review, try again, stop, start. It's very much an agile environment where you want to try to work out what doesn't work quickly, and then that will get you to what will work a lot more quickly. Typically, you want to start any cloud projects very small. It keeps your investment risk low. It keeps security risk low. And you also, while you're starting your cloud project, you want to think about how you're going to scale out and making sure that the business processes will scale out also. When you introduce cloud solutions, people think of it mainly in technology, from a technology perspective. What people oftentimes don't think about is how does this impact your business? what sorts of new training or support techniques or methods need to be provided to your employees, to your company. How does all of that change? Those are some of the non-technical human factor items that you want to consider as well. So there we are. This is sort of some best practices of how I sort of approach what I call cloud solutioning, right? So let's say I have an IT problem a business problem to solve, a business workload to host. I'm now considering using cloud to solution that. Here are some of the sort of basic first plays that I run. So again, we've talked about there are so many capabilities to look at, and there's also some challenges for stakeholders. So firstly, as you start thinking about cloud, people generally, when you speak cloud, they will think of a cloud service provider. They might think of Amazon, they might think of Azure, Google. They say, okay, well, that's great, it's cloud. Well, yeah, it is cloud. However, when you start drilling down a little further into it, there are a couple of different types of deployment models that you start to consider. You might build a private cloud inside a private data center, on-premise cloud. You might say, well, how is this different from traditional data center? Well, the difference could be that you are now delivering the IT service on in an OpEx manner, and you might charge it back to a line of business, or you might fund a private cloud instance for a specific program or line of business. You may provide a whole bunch of cloud-like capabilities, like automated provisioning, a different kind of service desk approach, a different way of migrating workloads from one thing to the other, or integrating just completely new capabilities at all that are available in a very cloud-like manner, coming off templates or what have you. Another kind of model is hybrid cloud. So this would be, again, hybrid cloud is not a strictly defined term. All right, it's somewhat flexible, but in general, you might consider hybrid cloud as being a combination of on-premise and a cloud solution operated by a commercial provider. So it could be, let's say you're running a storage platform and you have a physical deployment of your storage platform on-premise. You may also have a software-defined instance of the same storage platform running in cloud. So for example, you might have a software-defined storage product from any number of vendors, NetApp, VMware, what have you, and some of your capabilities are running on that instance, on that hypervisor, let's say, in the cloud there, and it may be running on-prem as well, and you might be able to move workloads from on-prem to cloud and back again. We call it hybrid. You could have something that might be called a managed private cloud. So this could be a cloud solution operated on behalf of a customer in a commercial facility. So you could say, well, it's a cloud solution that either you have provided as the customer, or that a service provider is providing to you in a commercial facility. So now it's a private cloud. So there's still an element of control over where your data is and how the networking is set up, let's say, and where the instances physically reside. However, it's now no longer on your own data center on premises in your corporate campus, let's say. And then lastly, you've got the what I call fully public cloud. So this is when you're running a workload in a fully multi-tenant shared cloud infrastructure hosted in a commercial facility and operated by a commercial entity in the most part, right? In the greatest part. So again, Amazon, Azure, Google, Oracle Cloud, all these kinds of things are now operated in their facilities. It's running on their hardware. They have their own security parameters that govern that cloud environment. They have a certain feature set that's available, certain SLAs, etc., and you're now fully in public cloud. Sort of the points down here also are that each deployment model has various pros and cons. There are various different service providers in all these categories. There are lots of different things to think about. You've got to think about your InfoSec security treatment, prior to production use. The thing that I sort of suggest to people here, and that we'll get to momentarily, is what you can do is develop and run your own cloud playbook for your organization. This will provide some structure to what you're doing and some organization. It'll also give you ways to decide where you are on the cloud journey and where you are in that process so that you can remain anchored in a sort of a logical sequence of events. It can be very easy with cloud to have people start doing stuff and then you sort of lose track of where you are and you sort of lose oversight on what's going on and you have people doing all these different things. So having an organized cloud playbook that suits your organization and that's mapped to your stakeholders will help you accomplish those program goals. And again, just the thing about these cloud playbooks is that really they can be driven from almost anyone that's involved in the cloud project. Typically, you'd want to have some sort of a management layer here, like a middle management layer and a executive management layer governing this. However, input to the cloud playbook should be leveraged from multiple parties, and in fact, ideally, most of the people that are involved in the project. At this point, I just thought I would throw open a little poll here and give you guys a chance to respond. We've got a poll here that we just open up and sort of saying, what stage are you at in using public cloud? For example, AWS, Azure, Google, IBM, Oracle. It's just interesting for us if you wouldn't mind just checking a couple of answers here, just to give me a sense of where you are in your cloud journey. That will also help me sort of tailor the content a little bit. So if we just take a moment and just thank you. I've got one response. Have not started yet evaluating options. Okay, good. Anyone else would appreciate just, okay, here we go. We're in process and we're currently using cloud. So that's really cool. That's actually a complete range or spectrum of options here. Okay, we've got some more people now checking they're currently using cloud in production. Okay. Okay, good. All right, and we've got the, I think we should consider moving on. That's actually interesting because, of course, okay, we've got some more responses now. We're in process of a cloud migration or a net new cloud project. Okay, good. Yeah. So in fact, from these 7 votes here, what's interesting is that we are actually seeing a lot of people that are more actively involved in cloud migration project or actually in production. That's great. Let's see. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so let's get along to the cloud playbook. So again, these are some of the best practices I've developed. I've had the good fortune to work with many different players here that are involved in cloud somehow, and these are just the learnings I'd like to share. And obviously, I'd very much like to hear from the audience how you feel about these points that I'm bringing across, and by all means, suggesting other points. This is not a catch-all thing here. What I like to do actually is at the outset of any cloud project, approach it with an open mind and a large whiteboard. There's nothing like a large whiteboard in a room with a bunch of folks to help bring everybody together, build consensus, provide visibility of what's going on. There are so many factors to consider that sort of doing a quick download of what are the goals, what do people think, what are they concerned about, what would they like to achieve, just kind of doing what I would call a brain dump on the whiteboard, and then that will then give everyone a feeling of being involved in the project. It will give you an opportunity to capture input from the audience and the people that are involved, and then you can start to, boil this down to sort of a plan, all right? The sort of second point I make here, build a community of participants in the project and design team leads or key roles in the project. Examples of that could be you're going to have, storage, networking, security, compute, apps, database, middleware, support. I think I already said security, but there's a whole bunch of different people that are going to be involved in your organization or the roles in that organization that are critical to success. If any one person or persons in that stakeholder community doesn't understand it or doesn't approve of it, they can bring the whole thing to a screeching halt, and especially security guys. If security guys don't like it, they don't understand it, they can say, stop, you will not proceed further until you fully make us comfortable, right? And I've seen this happen before too. I would also advise that you get an advisor community that can provide insights and a little bit of oversight and an independent view of what's going on. especially without having these delivery responsibilities. So essentially, people that don't have direct responsibility for the project, however, they can act as an overlay to provide some insights and sort of guidance there that you can then utilize in your process. I'd highly recommend running the project in an agile way. So just do, work out a schedule of regular stand-up calls with the primary stakeholders, set priorities for the day or the week, and solve high priority issues quickly. So that means figuring out who are the people that are working on your cloud project day to day. Give those people a regular stand-up call at the beginning of the day just to check in. Okay, guys, what are we doing today? What are the problems? What do we need help with? What's going on? And then obviously if anyone's got a burning issue, quickly bring that to the table and then get back to work. The other thing you want to, what I recommend is that you do a weekly executive review to track program process. The executive team might not be used to this, right? So part of this whole thing is getting the executives to understand that these cloud projects can move very quickly, and it's important to have them tracking along, again, just to help them be included, help prevent any sudden screeching halt moments, and again, hopefully showing them the benefits of using cloud and helping them get excited and being part of the process. Having everybody feeling like they're part of the process, including them, gathering their feedback is going to significantly reduce your risk of suddenly coming up against that screeching halt moment. A lot of people are now talking about doing sec DevOps, the idea of baking in your security posture and approach, your security planning ahead of time, and working that into the process, because that will likely compress your deployment schedule and reduce your risk. I've seen several cloud projects where people have just started developing stuff, and it works great, but they've never had a real plan on how to meet their information security requirements, and then what happens is then, in some cases, the way they've designed the solution has not been able to comply with security treatment, and they've had to start again. So again, this comes back to getting folks involved in the process. Okay, I'm just going to close that first poll now and go back to our little list. Let's see here now. I just wanted to, at this point, just sort of maybe throw up another poll and say, what are the main challenges you guys are facing with your cloud programs? Again, like in practice, a lot of times with cloud, you're not going to understand what problems exactly you're going to face or what challenges will come up, and then again, that's part of the rationale for using an agile approach. But again, I just wonder if you all could just take a moment and just maybe take a look at this poll and see if you could share some feedback there, please. I would say, again, from my experience, there's just those unexpected issues that pop up, just things out of left field that may pop up that we haven't considered and that need to be dealt with in some way. Actually, sorry, I didn't open the poll, but anyway, the poll's open now, talking about the challenges you're facing with your cloud programs. In some cases, I've seen issues where your design for the cloud solution isn't able to meet your SLA. You're finding it difficult to get the performance or the uptime. That the failover for HA may not work quite as you expected. It may be proving difficult to manage your cloud environment in production. Right, our staff are having to get used to working very differently to set up and manage cloud environments. That's a big part of it. Unexpected issues. A lot of times people will think about cloud, they'll think of it from a technology perspective, sure, and that's very important, but they don't always understand that there's going to be a lot of human factors and other things that will come up that you don't really get to learn until you actually start working cloud projects, and that's okay. People shouldn't feel bad about that. It just is what it is. It's a completely new environment. Unsure if the cloud will meet the workload requirements. Sure, these are very healthy and normal questions and things that will come up, and things that you, again, by having a playbook, you'll start to be able to apply a logical sequence of events and a solutioning approach to start working through this kind of thing. Okay, we're getting a little bit more activity on the unexpected issues. I will have a little questions from the audience segment shortly, or before the end of the webcast, so folks can just post actual questions. So this is just to give me a sense of where you guys are at, and again, I'm glad that we're bringing these things forward. So anyway, all right, I'm going to thank you for that poll. If there's any last minute folks that want to make a vote on any of these things, please do it now, and then I'm going to close this poll out for us. Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you. All right, here are some of my Cloud Playbook best practices, right? So I think the Engineering 101 and best practices apply for cloud just as for any other project. Again, I actually like to sort of draw these sort of diverse examples of problem solving. At the end of the day, let's say that your goal was, I want to be able to start a campfire anywhere at any time under any conditions. Well, if you're doing a campfire, usually you're going to be outside, so we're making that assumption. So in this case, perhaps what I might need to do is develop an all-weather ignition device, right? So perhaps the traditional box of matches may not work so well because it doesn't work so well in wet weather. There might be some weatherproof matches that may work well in all weather, but it may not be enough to get a fire started. So you might need to think about developing an ignition device for all weather conditions. This is the military looks at these things. Again, if you're the Air Force, you want to ensure air dominance. You want to be able to prevail in any type of air combat situation. So what you do then is say, hey, I need to develop a 5th generation military aircraft like the F-22 right here. In regarding to cloud and what we're talking about today, really, I would imagine that your main business outcome is to accelerate your business objectives or accelerate your ability to support those objectives. And so then you might say, okay, I think that adopting cloud service could help me here. I think so anyway. It may not though. So again, it's important here that you sort of develop your own logical sequence of events, and this is what will be a way of governing the process of going to cloud and how you should approach things. We talked about the open mind and the big whiteboard. Okay, so this is the old story, right? If you're trying to decide what to do and you're trying to do something, you want to start out with really just doing very high level, saying, what are the outcomes I'm looking for? Outcome mapping, okay? What are we actually trying to do? Well, we might want to accelerate our supply chain, logistics. We might want to accelerate our ability to close our our month-end or year-end financials. Great, well that's fine. And so we know some of those things that we want to do, but now let's also put some scope boundaries around that, right? So we're not looking to boil the ocean necessarily, but we have to sort of define what the scope boundaries are so that it will sort of guide what we do next. The other thing I do after we sort of mapped out these outcomes and the scope boundaries, what I like to do is develop a draft schedule. So the thing is, somebody somewhere, let's say it's the financial people, the CFO or a line of business person, will have some sort of a draft schedule in mind for saying, hey, we want to do something and we want to do it by then, and we want to have it developed this way. If you don't develop a schedule or a draft timeline at this point, you still are kind of in never land. You're still not sure exactly what you have to do and by when you have to do it. So again, at the outset of this project, develop that draft schedule. It can obviously flex and change, but at least develop it. So once you have these things, you have some outcomes, you have some schedule ideas, then you start getting to your high-level solutioning. So that's when you start considering the different options. You might say, hey, I'm going to try to move it to this cloud or that cloud. I'm going to do hybrid. I'm going to do private cloud. I might try and do some small pilot projects just to kind of see how this might work so we can reduce risk and not go off on the wrong track and have a lot of problems. So once you've kind of got your high-level solution sort of more clearly defined, you then start getting into a more detailed engineering design. So this is really going down to the nitty-gritty, down to like IP addresses or security protocols or instance sizing for what you're going to run somewhere. You're putting together your initial system security plan and your proof of concepts, your beta tester type situations, your environments for trying things out. And then again, once you get through step 4 and you're pretty sure that you're very close to knowing what to purchase, that's when you get into your procurement and contracting phase for your production scale out. So step 4 can quite oftentimes be done with a relatively small financial commitment. It can be done. Sometimes it might take more. But again, step 4 is kind of the place where you sort of get yourself to 80 or 90% of the way where you want to be so that you can finalize your procurement and work out, the economics around what you're doing and what have you. So once you've procured the solutions for your production scale out, you do your system stand-ups. This is the system build phase where you're actually now building your pre-production system and getting it ready to go to production. And then typically what will happen is once the system's built, you'll have to do your final system security review, and in the government's case, you do get an ATO, which is an authority to operate. So you have to, in your timeline, you obviously want to, plan and schedule ahead of time with your security people. Say, hey, we're building the system now. This is what's going on. We'll need to get a review so that we can, get your blessing to put this thing into production. And then once you've done that, you're going now into your production deployment and ongoing operations phase. So this is another area that needs to be fully understood and sketched out and mapped out, because of course if you're migrating from one thing to another, or if you're standing up a new production environment, that all needs to be planned out. That has a lot of things going on with it, and then also you need to figure out how you're going to support this new environment going forward with end users and with your staff. So again, these are sort of some of my sort of suggested best practices that will help you perhaps you run your own playbook or build your own playbook. Let's see, our next section is some emerging cloud-centric solutions that I've sort of found that I wanted to share with you guys. But I also want to throw up another poll real quick. What are some of the things that you've learned by using cloud? I've just put these things together. If you could take a look at the poll, we could try different ways of running workloads very quickly compared to legacy. This is usually the case. You can spin up DevOps very quickly, much more easily. You're able to improve productivity because your IT staff are able to support user requests more effectively. The users may want to say, hey, I'm looking at buying some new software. I want to, thank you for that feedback. Cloud presents many options to meeting needs of our business. Great. Yes, it does. IT staff may actually find that they get more job satisfaction and more that morale goes up because they're able to support user requests more effectively than as compared to saying, no, we can't do it. No, we can't do it. Yeah, we can do it, but it's going to take 6 months. IT staff oftentimes enjoy having cloud in their own playbook because they can just support the users more effectively, which is what IT people want to do. That's what they like to do, supporting users and making them run their business. The one other thing is I wonder what people think about information security. I mean, I typically see InfoSec people finding cloud difficult to understand, and they're on that learning curve. Oftentimes they need to be convinced that the company data you move into cloud can be secured in the same way as you would on-prem. So just wondering if that last question is something that people have come across as well in your experience. InfoSec people being on a steep learning curve. Okay. All right. It looks like most people here are saying that the cloud does present you with many options and meeting needs of business. Okay. So that's good. Okay. All right. I'll keep that poll open just for a little bit longer, but I'd like to just share some examples of emerging cloud-centric solutions that we found. I mean, part of the practice we have here at Madison Cloud is that we're constantly looking for emerging technologies that we feel are useful and offer some new capabilities that will provide value for our clients. And this is one of them. It's a company called StoreOne. Some may have heard about this. It's the next generation of software-defined storage. And here we're just quickly showing the progression from legacy storage, complex, hardware-based, system refresh on a frequent basis, feature lock-in. This is a traditional legacy storage way of doing things. It works. It's worked for a long time. It still works. However, with cloud, there are new options. There's this, cloud native and hybrid. There are a lot of new cloud storage services out there. It presents challenges and opportunities. There's typically multiple pricing plans, there's performance considerations, there's software array to concern yourself with, and again, it just presents a lot of things to look at. This solution that we like very well is StoreOne's software-defined storage. It completely abstracts the storage services from hardware, so essentially the storage software, in this case from StoreOne, can run on any almost any x86 platform. It has a lot of features like all drives being used simultaneously for all storage services, so it uses erasure coding and not RAID. So in RAID, you're having some drives that are in your arrays that are not actually used for data. With erasure coding, you're using all your drives for data, and you have an appropriate data protection management scheme. But in any case, it's much faster to do rebuilds. It gets a lot more usable capacity out of your drives, and you're able to serve up all primary file storage, block, and object out of all the drives that you have in your pool simultaneously. So you can set up file, block, and object volumes simultaneously from all drives. And these are some very interesting, unique benefits that StoreOne brings. So again, we would welcome any questions that you may have about this type of solution after the webcast. Another solution that we've found is Accelerario. So this is a database migration and refresh tool. So the legacy way, again, for refreshing databases can be lengthy. It might take you a couple of days. You're typically refreshing the whole database. You might need different types of software products to perform these operations. Probably a lot of DBA work involved, a lot of time spent, and you have to generally create manual or custom scripted processes. So the Accelerario solution greatly simplifies this type of workload scenario. We're talking hours instead of days. It will refresh only certain selected data sets or elements. It's one single instance of software that you use to perform your migration or your refreshes, and it just greatly simplifies the process. And again, it's a kind of a new cloud-centric capability that can run in cloud, it can run on-prem, it can run hybrid. So again, this is one of the solutions we like because it just really simplifies and accelerates one of the things that people do a lot of the time, which is working with database migration and refreshes.
Hey Tom.
Yeah.
Let me kind of hop in here just 1 second. Just saw someone write a question, just making a comment more that just says no audio. We've actually noticed that on our end it goes in and out. If it does go out, just refresh the page. That should fix it.
Okay.
But we have noticed it's been going out every once in a while.
Okay. How's the audio at the moment then?
It's been fine for me, but I'm on the presenter side too.
Okay.
So just to the audience, if it does happen, just try refreshing your page. If it's still giving issues, just write another question in, and we can get live support to look into that as well. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Randall. I appreciate it. Okay, good. So we're going to move on to our next solution we like. One of the challenges in cloud is networking, right? So networking, typically WAN networking is a challenge. You're needing to, set up a variety of connections from endpoint to endpoints, from your data center or your cloud instance to end users. Another solution we've come across that we like is the DH2I software-defined networking solution that allows you to very rapidly set up secure tunnels between different applications and what have you, as compared to the difficulty of setting up and maintaining VPNs, IPsec tunnels. So again, the way they do this is they have some special protocol treatment, protocol methodologies that they use. They have a connection matchmaking service or connection service there that they use. And again, it's one of the things that we like because it solves or enables you to set up different types of networking scenarios very quickly for testing, and then consider using the technology for production as well. So again, just to recap a little bit, we've talked about new software-defined storage capabilities for StoreOne. We've talked about database migration refresh. We're now talking about networking. And now the other solution that we like is a multi-level security solution called Pitbull from General Dynamics Mission Systems. So we came across this solution as well at one of the conferences we went to. We met the folks from GD, I call them GD, General Dynamics. They have a way of labeling data objects with certain parameters, certain tags, shall we say, which can then be interpreted or defined by saying that a certain role-based access policy applies, right? So in the military, there's typically a number of range of unclassified levels of data where there are certain levels of ability for people to view and read and write the data, and then obviously there's classified data, which has a much higher degree of security requirements and data spillage control requirements. And so again, as your data starts moving around, moving in and out of cloud, moving to different locations, an MLS security solution might be something you want to look into, because it becomes very difficult to start controlling who's looking at your data, where it's going, version control, all that sort of thing. And so again, the Pitbull MLS solution that we've come across is one that we really like, because it solves a lot of those problems very quickly. And it can be used certainly for the more stringent type of environments in the military, let's say. But it can also be used in commercial settings where you're trying to, when you need to keep a track of where your data is, you want to label your data, you want to enforce policies to label data at time of saving or gathering or creating data, and then as you start to build out a data lake or large, diverse areas where you're storing data, this type of MLS solution will allow you to keep a very tight control and visibility of where your data is and who worked on it and what's going on with it, and also to help control data spillage in case the object goes outside of your environment. There can be timers that are set to expire access to data or other things like that. So again, this is a great solution we like, and we obviously welcome any questions about the solution as well. Again, just to sort of basically wrap this up, best practices are best practices, and again, a playbook is something that I would highly encourage everyone to consider adopting and writing and using to govern your cloud projects. So again, we'll just kind of recap here. So clearly define the business objectives up front to anchor all your activities. So again, at the start, if you recall, we had the big whiteboard discussion. The whiteboard is very useful for helping everyone to see what the business objectives are. The whiteboard sessions obviously should continue during the process in that agile way, whether it's an online or in-person whiteboarding type of activity, collaboration. And then that sort of leads us into the second point, accomplishing the active stakeholder engagement. Again, things can come to a screeching halt if the people that are affected by this new solution are not involved, and it can either have a screeching halt moment or it can just slow things down. So it's key to identify in your whiteboarding initially, say, okay, who's involved, who does this project touch? Let's be very open about this, and let's create a list of people, let's say, that are involved in this, and let's facilitate the collaboration and making sure that everyone's viewpoint's included here, so that we don't suddenly have an unexpected delay or problem, because the way to minimize the potential impact of these problems is by getting people involved. It's okay to try things without, appropriately without being sure of the outcome. Be willing to fail quickly to learn faster. So again, the good news with cloud is that typically in the development or stages of using cloud, you're able to fail quickly. You need to do that in a controlled environment appropriately. However, using cloud, you can start very quickly. In a few hours or a few days, you can figure out what works and what doesn't work, and that way you can move forward more quickly. In the traditional legacy way of designing and purchasing and deploying IT, you'll be likely stuck with your decisions that you made 6 months ago, and have to try to work around it somehow, but will, may have more difficulty in recovering from issues that things that didn't work out well. I've talked many times now about facilitating regular communications. Again, cloud projects can move forward very quickly indeed. And again, these regular stakeholder communications, we talked about a quick daily stand-up with the team that's working on it just to help everyone stay on the same page, and a weekly brief for executive folks. The other thing that we sort of didn't touch on that much previously, but we should touch on here, is you need to put in place the effective financial oversight and management controls. So one of the typical problems with cloud is, oh my gosh, somebody provisioned the last instance, they left it running for a week or two, now we've got a $10,000 bill to pay. So however you do this, there are many different ways to do this, many tools. Think about putting together some sort of financial oversight and management control in your cloud adoption process early on. This would be one of the factors you would whiteboard out and put in your scope boundaries, for example. The folks running DevOps, okay, you have a certain finite budget. You may say you're allowed to spend up to $10,000 or $20,000 on cloud subscriptions for your DevOps, but if you think you need more, if you're coming up against that boundary, you need to let somebody know, and you certainly need to make a plan to slow down or stop before you exceed that boundary. Again, if you don't have these things in place up front, you can have a lot of challenges on the back end. And then finally, consider your security requirements at the outset and throughout the project. So again, this comes into security is a critical stakeholder in any of these projects. Having them on board, having them provide input, working with them proactively to as you design and develop and start rolling out things, having them proactively involved to track along and understand what's going on will help you get from pre-prod to prod a lot more quickly, because if you leave all of this till the end, firstly, you have to get on their schedule. They got a lot of stuff going on. Secondly, if they haven't followed along with the whole project, obviously it's much more difficult for them to understand it, and it's more difficult for them to approve what you're doing. So again, these are some of the best practices that I sort of generally look at when I'm approaching running a cloud project. Let's see here. I'm just going to stop voting on the previous poll. I'm just going to go back to my list. I just want to sort of throw another poll out here. This is one that I sort of like to sort of understand feedback from. How will you approach keeping up with the many new services that become available from cloud providers on a continual basis? So this is one of the other challenges I've seen in sort of with our customers and with my industry experience. It's very difficult to keep up with all the new stuff that keeps coming out from cloud providers. Some have, as many as 1,000 new services that they roll out in a year. Now, how are you going to keep up with all this stuff? Again, I think that comes into your overall cloud strategy. There needs to be some sort of planning for, a way to approach this. How, will you say, okay, I'm going to have my IT staff have a certain amount of budget or time that they should spend attending these industry events, the meetups, cloud working groups, to help stay abreast of what's going on and to help learn from other cloud practitioners. Just got a vote here inviting the industry experts or cloud providers, experts to come to your business. This is a very effective way of doing things. For example, this webinar you are attending now, I mean, I'm a cloud practitioner with some experience. I have some insights that I'm looking to share with people. Even doing this for an hour will help you maybe learn a couple of new things. That's very helpful. Even if you just take away one small thing from this webinar, you know more now than you did an hour ago. So that's great. Reduces risk, improves your chances of success. I'm just wondering if anyone in the group here that's online are organizing any internal company events, for example, again, perhaps once a month or once every couple of weeks, having a brown bag lunch, sort of helping people come to the table and asking their questions in an open and friendly environment. Again, there'll be many in the organization you're in that will struggle to understand cloud. They'll feel a little bit intimidated by it all. They're looking for some sort of an informal setting where they can feel comfortable to bring their questions forward they might not be comfortable with or even knowing who to approach with their question. So again, facilitating an internal company event or work group event in that sort of very friendly, comfortable setting will oftentimes help draw people in and help people understand what to do, what's going on, which again just creates that good morale and good buzz around cloud projects as compared to it being something strange and complex that people don't understand. I'm also wondering if people are working on, creating a service catalog for end users to help them understand what types of supported cloud services are available for them, because people will see things in industry news, they'll see things online, they'll talk to people, but they don't really know, what's available, what's approved, things like that. So again, one thing that I sort of suggest to customers is build a service catalog or some sort of place where users can go to say, okay, this is what's in the roadmap, this is what's coming up, this is what we're working on, these are some new services that will become available, here are the approved services that are available, and such like. Again, it just helps to educate people and what have you. So right now, it's interesting, I got 3 votes about inviting industry experts. I don't have any votes on any of the other things, so that's kind of interesting to me. Again, I'm just wondering, is anyone planning on having their IT staff attending industry events? Is anyone doing the internal brown bag lunches? Is anyone developing a service catalog to help end users understand what's available, what's coming up? No right or wrong answer here, but just interested in your feedback. It seems most people are looking for industry experts to come and speak with them and provide Q&A. So, okay. Very good. I will keep that open. So I think at this point, what I'd like to do is open it up for questions from the audience. There's a little tab there that says feedback from the audience, and I'm just wondering if anyone would like to post some questions that I can possibly help answer there. So again, just throwing it open to you guys out there. Click on the audience feedback bar, and then please go ahead and post any questions you may have.
Tom, we got one question I can see coming in here. It says, we have a small IT staff tasked with moving data and applications to the cloud. They said they're pretty inexperienced with the cloud.
Right.
And they're not really sure, I guess, where to start. They said,
okay.
How can Madison Cloud help us?
Right, that's a very good question. So I think we would be more than happy to set up a call with you. We can basically run our cloud playbook. What I would do is I would have a conversation with you on the phone to learn more about who you are and what your role is in the cloud project that you're trying to roll out or evaluate, and then we would most likely that we would come by and have a meeting or be online together and start running a cloud playbook. Again, I'm just going to flick back to those slides real quick. Sorry, I just went past it. Yeah, so what we would probably do is set up a call with you. We would sort of talk through some of these things here you see in the playbook, so steps 1 through 8. We just have a general conversation, say, okay, where are you? Sounds like you're right in the beginning. So let's just start with the first step. Let's just talk about outcome mapping and your scope boundaries and maybe a draft schedule. Those 2 things are really where it starts. They can be a relatively short or a longer conversation. But in any case, we would help you follow along with our playbook. We could help you create your own playbook. We can start to populate all these different areas in the sequence of events based on your specific needs, and we have a lot of different ways to approach it. Again, I'd just like to hear your feedback from that person asking the question, if you felt that reasonably addressed your question, good or bad or indifferent. Feedback and all of that is critical to any of these processes.
Another question coming in here is, what are the main considerations when choosing a cloud provider?
That's a great question. Main considerations. I think the thing is that choosing a cloud provider, as far as my playbook is concerned, starts to come into play in the in the sort of the level 3, stage 3 and 4 part of the playbook, right? So start making decisions about which cloud provider to use, you need to have documented your outcome mapping and scope boundaries piece. You need your draft schedule. The outcome mapping can include things like defining your SLA, defining financials, talking through, your ability to support things. One of the outcomes you may want to accomplish, saying, look, we don't have the skill sets, or we don't want to drastically change the way we're running our apps. We may have a certain hypervisor preference. We have maybe a requirement to meet certain security guidelines. And so we're going to put those down as outcomes. We don't know how to solve the problems yet, but we know that we have to address these things. And so what happens is, in terms of choosing that cloud provider, you would want to have the outcomes mapped out. You'd want to look at your schedule so that you can figure out, okay, if I go for a cloud provider A, B, or C, based on the level of complexity, based on the things that I'm going to need to address, can I meet the schedule I need? And those are questions, again, that we can help guide you through there as well. Again, I'm just looking at the question, do we have any references or pilot projects handbook? Well, the answer is there are lots of cloud playbooks and handbooks out there. It can be completely bewildering to try to figure out which one to use and pick. Probably the best thing to do is to have somebody like ourselves. We're set up as cloud cloud expert practitioners with a lot of experience. It's like doing anything, get someone to help guide you to start with, and then you will start to learn what to do yourself as you go along. It's like coaching someone to play basketball, right? If you want to start playing basketball, you don't know where to start. There's a hoop, there's a ball, you got to bounce it around someone, shoot the hoop ball, great. But what do? You go get a coach, right? So in this case, getting someone to help be your coach and help you get going is probably what I would recommend. Okay. And again, any feedback on those comments, please feel free to post, and we can respond as well. Randall, any other questions that we can help with right now?
We got another one in here. It says they're currently using Gmail for email hosting and are thinking about moving a couple of their other applications to AWS or Azure.
Yep.
And their question is, what's the best way to connect to multiple cloud providers?
Okay, so I heard. Can you repeat?
Yeah, I guess they're using multiple cloud providers for different applications.
Okay.
And linking them together, because it can get complex.
Yes, indeed. So again, I would say that would be the kind of scenario where I'd like to understand more about what the challenges are. I'd like to understand what the person's trying to do, and where the problems might be. It sounds perhaps like you may be experiencing what we call cloud sprawl, so where you've had people standing different environments up and running things, and it's sort of working, but you kind of now have a lot of different moving parts going on. And so what may be needed here is just to kind of take a few steps back and say, okay, guys, let's just come back. Let's define what our outcomes are that we want to be. Let's define some scope, schedule, and let's go through that high-level solutioning stage to see what exactly do we need to solve solution for. What do we need to consider changing? What might we do differently? So again, that's the kind of the conversation that having an outside advisor or a coach or someone like Madison Cloud, we can come in, facilitate those conversations in an independent way. We're not looking to point fingers or lay blame or anything like that. We're just looking to help talk the organization through what's going on and try to understand what the challenges are, and then start to propose some solutions. So there's no quick answer to any of those things. You have to just go through this process and essentially run this playbook to get yourself to the point of where you can decide what to do and create the action plan. Okay. Any other questions coming in, Randall, right now?
There are a few more, but I think we're going to get cut off here in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, well, we've got about 4.5 minutes. Why don't you pick one or two, and we'll try to answer them quickly.
Okay, here's one. Is it possible to have your data separate from your from AWS? I guess storing their data in a different location than doing compute in a separate location.
Most definitely, absolutely. So that model of deployment we call cloud-connected storage or cloud-connected data. So there are a number of different ways. For example, with the StoreOne solution, we can actually set up a private storage instance which can be located either in your own data center or in a data center like Equinix, which is located within about 2 or 3 milliseconds of latency from the cloud providers' compute instances and services. So what happens there is you can simply architect, and we can help you with this, a private storage instance that's directly connected to cloud by a VLAN or what have you, and then it allows you to keep 100% control of where your data is, and it also allows you to use software-defined capabilities that can interact with your on-prem storage. One of the key considerations, though, with that kind of deployment model is looking at the latency, the transport latency from your data set to the compute resource in the cloud. So again, a good design review on that kind of thing is critical, because if you put that data too far away from the cloud, let's say it's more than 5 or 6 or 7 milliseconds away round trip time from the cloud compute instances, your applications can start timing out and not running properly. So that would be, in terms of the cloud playbook, that would be a step 3 item where we would start working with you on solutioning that in different ways and running a small pilot to make sure your apps are going to run the way you want. But the answer is there are absolutely ways to do what you said, having private storage. Randall, a couple more questions. We've got a few more minutes.
I think that's probably good for now.
Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. Yeah, so in terms of follow-up, I'm just going to flip forward, put my contact information on screen here. I hope this has been useful for everyone. I've appreciated all the engagement. There's been a lot of good feedback from the polls. I do have a final poll here that I'll throw out there while we're still here and wrapping up. And it's very simple. Did we provide you with any new cloud-based practices? Did you learn anything? Where did we fall in terms of the spectrum of, we were able to share some new things that were useful to, I didn't really talk about anything that you didn't already know. There was nothing new here at all for you. So please, if you would, just take a few minutes and just give us a quick read or insight into how you felt. Okay, great. I appreciate it. Somebody learned a lot of new things that will be used for planning for cloud. Good. Great. Again, my contact information is on screen. I welcome a phone call or email at any time, and more than happy to chat some more about your particular situation. I'm actually interested to see if there's anyone out there that actually didn't learn anything new at all. I think the kind of people that probably didn't learn anything new are probably people that are very experienced, that have been doing and running cloud projects for quite some time. The best practices that we talked about today are basically, again, rooted in Engineering 101 and just good business management. However, it takes time to learn this type of thing in cloud, and don't feel badly if you're still struggling to get this right. So anyway, we're at the top of the hour. Again, I want to thank you so much for the attendance and the participation. The slides will be available for on-demand viewing, and of course my contact details are on screen. I welcome and look forward to talking to anyone that was on the webinar here personally, or anyone else that you would care to have engaged with us. So thanks again, and I hope to see you on a webinar again in the near future. Thank you so much.